Okay, gloomy looking day and really tight on time again. I guess with that in mind, what's going on today? I did quickly read some stuff. How about this one first? This one says emergency response drones to save lives in the digital skies. So it seems like it's essentially talking about the future where they will use drones for medical emergencies and potentially, I guess, putting out things like fires, I guess, potentially, or notifying the fire department. It says in a city in the future, a fire breaks out in a skyscraper. An alarm is triggered and a swarm of drones swoops in, surrounds the building, and uses antennas to locate people inside, enabling firefighters to go straight to the stricken individuals. Just in the nick of time, no deaths are recorded. Elsewhere in the city, drones fly back and forth delivering tissue samples from hospitals to specialist labs for analysis, while another rushes a defibrillator to someone who has suffered a suspected cardiac arrest on a football pitch. The patient lives, with the saved minutes proving critical. At the time of writing, drones have already been used in search and rescue situations to save more than 880 people worldwide. It is kind of interesting to think about, I guess, this part where will they be using things like drones to put out fires automatically per se. It says the Ideal Drone Project developed a system to aid in firefighting and other emergencies to demonstrate the potential for using swarms of uncrewed aerial vehicles in such situations. Equipped with antennas, the drones use a radio frequency system to detect the location of nodes or tags worn by people inside a building. Making use of an Italian aircraft hangar, the test involved pilots on the ground flying 3 drones around the outside of a building. The idea is that the drones triangulate the position of people inside where their signals intersect, as well as detecting information about their health condition. The details can then be mapped to optimize and accelerate rescue operations and enhance safety for firefighters by allowing them to avoid searching all over a burning building without knowing where people are. So it's kind of interesting to think about. Does that mean, I guess, people within the building, they would have to have this tag of sorts? So what would you do? Give it to people, and during an emergency they would have to activate it per se, where all the signals and stuff would detect it? And with that in mind, they do say here there are some challenges in terms of accuracy and battery life, while another obvious drawback is that people in the building need to already be wearing trackers. However, said Professor Semalero, current thinking is that this can be unintrusive if tags are incorporated in existing technology that people often already carry, such as smartwatches, mobile phones, or ID cards. They can also be used by organizations that mandate their use for staff working in hazardous environments such as factories or offshore oil rigs. Now there's the controversy on whether or not you should implement all these tracking devices in everything that you use per se. Because I know during these times a lot of people are getting really iffy about it in terms of, I don't know, just officials and so forth having access to everything and controlling information. And whether or not some stories are true, for example, remember that one they claimed in China where people with certain passports, they were, I guess, flagged red as if they had a virus to prevent them from going to places, whereas some people are criticizing they were doing that on purpose to stop people from protesting. So that would be kind of an interesting obstacle if they can actually get over that. And with that thought, in terms of things like drone regulations, this was actually really fascinating. It's very apparent in a lot of countries where when it comes to making things like regulations, there's too much conflict of interest per se, where people, let's just say, I don't know, selling courses, programs or whatever, they want to promote, I guess, over-the-top regulations or ones that suit them so they can make business. It's kind of, I guess, contradicting to this whole, I guess, safety approach. So this was kind of interesting, where apparently in the US it says the FAA was trying to get public input. They did do that before, I remember, but a lot of people are arguing they just didn't listen to it. So how about this one? This one says FAA takes public input on long distance drone flights. So it's kind of interesting here as I kind of learned why they were so, I guess, adamant about things like visual line of sight per se, even though for a lot of people who fly drones, you would say this makes absolutely no sense in a lot of situations. Like, for example, just flying around a tree. Technically, if you can't see it for a second, you lost your visual line of sight, even though realistically, with the way you fly a drone with the screen and all that, like that's perfectly safe. It says here, while drones have been making a big impact on industry and public safety and have even saved lives, they've largely been subject to one huge limitation. They can't legally go very far from the operator. FAA rules require that they stay within visual line of sight, which means you cannot only see the drone, as a little speck in the air, but actually know which way it's facing. You also can't use your view from the camera or other telemetry to do this. The maximum distance most pilots can lawfully go is about a quarter mile, but this varies depending on the drone. It's easier to see larger drones once from further away and on conditions, among other things. And here's the part that I learned. It says, why does the FAA do this? It goes back to a 1956 mid-air collision of two airliners that occurred over the Grand Canyon. Due to a series of misunderstandings and errors, the planes ended up at the same altitude flying over the same area and didn't get any warnings that another plane was in the area. By the time the pilots saw each other's planes, it was too late to act. One pilot seems to have tried, and the planes tore each other up in the sky. Both planes fell into the canyon and nobody on either plane survived. So I guess there's the moment where they said, okay, we need to make a rule about this. But I guess the unfortunate thing is, again, they're trying to make every single quote drone sound like it's a huge manned aircraft when it isn't. I guess that's one of the issues they're bringing up, where it says you can't do that per se. And so with the drawback, actually talking about things like search and rescue in the previous articles, it says not being able to fly drones long distances makes it hard to do things people want to do. Drone deliveries, some search and rescue operations, and even some kinds of photography are difficult or impossible to do under current rules. And they say if you want to, I guess, bypass that, you have to get, I guess, explicit permission from them. And at the same time, they're trying, they say anyways, to reduce a lot of the laws and relax them so that people could just, I guess, fly these drones in ways that they would normally deem as really complicated, like just make it standard. For example, nighttime flying and all that. But to me, this was the most fascinating part of the article, where they talked about, I guess, people who want the regulations to stay the way they are per se. And this is kind of like what I said before. It kind of matches in terms of the conflict of interest. It says in terms of someone, I guess, making a remark, it says the first guy who commented represented crop dusters or pilots for dropping aerial applications of chemicals, seeds, fire retardants, and more on crops and land. Crop dusters have been antagonistic to drone pilots in the past, as they often fly low where drones are allowed to fly. He played up the importance of his industry and then expressed fears that the recommendations would cause safety issues for crop dusters. It's worth noting that he left something important out, that crop dusters are afraid that unmanned aircraft will replace manned crop dusting planes. So his comments are financially motivated and should be considered that in context, but we should look for anything good in his comments that we can. I mean, to me, from my own observations, even from here, there's just way too much conflict of interest in that way, where a lot of people, they're only saying certain things because they want to make money. Like, for example, I don't know, selling courses, continuing to sell their services and all that, programs, whatever it is. There's so much conflict of interest. And that does not just mean, for example, let's just say here, someone flying a traditional manned aircraft. It could be a, quote, drone operator as well, where someone's so greedy, they want to have, I don't know, all the business and services out there. It reminds me exactly kind of like that meeting in the Transport Canada when they had the hearing from the public, where one guy says, oh, I just don't want people to get, like, I don't know, the ability to fly this stuff so easily because that person went through like a certain process. I'm like, if it doesn't make sense, it should be eliminated. These regulations and stuff should be about, quote, safety, not as a way to restrict or promote your business and a way to, like, say, oh, to the competition, oh, I'm the one in town here that can do this. Like, that's ridiculous. That's a little unfortunate because even for myself, as I said here, I've never seen one organization that's basically conflict of interest free per se, from, like, say, a commercial aspect or something like that, where they want to promote rules and regulations that actually deal with safety, not as a way for them to promote their own, I guess, business or organization. I mean, do your research. It seems like everyone has a conflict in that way. I remember one example where there was a company where they claimed, oh, we're doing this because we love it so much and so forth. But when you look at the history and the documentation, they outright even say, for example, oh, they entered it because they saw like an opportunity to make money and all that. So obviously you're not like whatever, like the angel you claim to be per se. And there's like other examples, like they're so common, like fake gurus and all that. I mean, you look at it, you do the history, they almost follow the exact same type of blueprint, and kind of in the same topic but in a different twist. It reminded me early on when the regulations and stuff came out here in Canada. I remember there was one person who was really against over-the-top regulations, and there was this organization that actually promoted over-the-top regulations. And so for some reason he started to like become, I don't know, buddy with them or suck up to them, if that's what you want to say. And I was thinking in my mind, what are you doing? Like, why do you constantly promote this person or this organization when clearly you can see here with the proof they promote over-the-top regulations and stuff, like in the background and all that. And the person's response, surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, it's really common, was, oh, he wants to get on their good side because in the future maybe they'll be able to offer jobs and stuff like that. Like, there's a huge conflict of interest there which people use, where even though you know they're doing something bad to create, I don't know, like bad laws and stuff like that, there's like a financial interest there for you not to say speak up. And there's kind of like a cycle there too. It's kind of unfortunate. That's how it works actually with even things like fake gurus, where even if people know it's bad and so forth, if they're making money, it doesn't matter to them if they're like scamming people or hurting the mass majority, because it's all about them just increasing their, I don't know, presence and making more money on their courses or programs. So it's a little unfortunate, but that's kind of how the world works, I guess, in a lot of places until it's too late. Alright, see you guys later.